Okay, are you ready? On your mark. Get set. What do you mean you're not ready? This is the last portion of the PowerPoint video that you saw at the end of lesson 1.7. So I told you not to go on to lesson 1.8 unless you had mastered this fastest pace of the PowerPoint. So undoubtedly you must be ready. You're trying to move on to the next lesson. You are ready, aren't you? You did take me seriously, didn't you? Well, let's find out. Ready? Hit it. That's it. Keep saying them. Keep going. Well, for many of you, bravo, well done. For many of you, very well done. But for some of you, I don't think you took me seriously when it came to the need to keep up with the fastest pace of the PowerPoint presentation, or when it's a timed activity with a stopwatch to beat that timing, or when it's a timed activity like the tests at the end of lessons to be able to complete all the statements before that your time limit has run out. Some of you aren't necessarily taking me seriously about that yet. You've got to be able to do this. 2, 6, 1, 4, 15, 7, 12, 18, 11, 17, 8, 13, 14, 9, 19, 10, 16, 5, 3. It's going to take work. It's going to take repetition, isn't it, to be able to maintain the fastest paces that are required of you. Is it worth it? Are you sure it's worth it? Well, you know, at the beginning of this course, I shared with you one reason why I was glad that I had learned to speak another language. In that case, it was French, because of the young man whom I met, Emmanuel, who needed a father figure in his life during his adolescent years, and with whom I was able to interact because I could speak his language. I said I was going to share other reasons as time went by, and it's time today for another one. Sometimes the ability to speak another language may actually be a matter of life and death, or at least it could be an emergency kind of a situation. That's what happened to me back about late 1980s, I think it was. I was playing basketball for the town team that in the town that we lived in northern France. So in any case, one Wednesday evening, I was coming back from practice at the local gymnasium, and I was coming into the street where our high-rise apartment building was located. And down the street, way down the sidewalk, I could see a really attractive French car called a Renault 21. A Renault 21. And the Renault 21 was an expensive car, very attractive. And I noticed there were two gentlemen standing, not quite as gentle it turns out, but there were two men standing next to that car. One was tall and thin, and one was short and kind of squat. And in any case, the closer I came to the car, the more I noticed they backed away from it. And I thought, that's rather suspicious looking. But I didn't say anything or do anything at that point. I just passed them by, and I said, "Bonsoir, monsieur. Good evening, gentlemen." And they responded to me as well. So I turned left and walked across the parking lot to our entrance to our apartment building. But as soon as I got inside the entrance, I raced up the stairs. I didn't take the elevator up to the 6th floor. I couldn't do that anymore, but I did then. Because I didn't want to take the elevator, it would be too slow. I entered our apartment, went right over to the window, looked out the window, and indeed these men were trying to break into the car. I said to my wife, these men are trying to steal a car, quick, call the police. Now, why did I do that? I didn't feel right in my conscience that I could just watch people commit a crime and do nothing about it. I felt that would kind of sully and lessen me if I were to do that. And so, while my wife called the police, and it's quite admirable because her French was not very developed at that point, she did get the message across. I ran down the stairs and got down to the parking lot, not knowing really what I was going to do. I didn't have a weapon. I've never had a fight, and so I really had no idea how I was going to stop these guys from stealing the car, but I felt I just had to do something. So as I walked across the parking lot, seeing their car parked in front of this house across the street from the apartment building, I did a foolish thing, I suppose, but I had to do something. I simply, by this time, by the way, they'd gotten into the car. I simply pointed at them to indicate, I see you, I know what you're doing. And you could see after I did that, they started kind of frantically panicking a little bit, trying to hotwire the car, trying to get it started. I kept walking across the parking lot toward them. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I frankly got right over to the car. I reached out my hand for the driver's side, the door handle. And just at that moment, thankfully, they got the car started. And the car screeched down off the sidewalk, because in France you park on the sidewalk because there's not enough room in the streets, or at least in many places you do. The streets are very narrow. And it screeched down off the sidewalk, but they had one problem. They had not been able to unlock the steering column. They couldn't steer the vehicle. So as quickly as they got down to the street, the car veered right back up and smashed into a wall about 2 houses down from the house from where they'd stolen the car. Well, for a moment there was silence. And then the car doors opened, both of them. And the 2 men got out of the car and started walking back toward me. Thankfully, I never found out what they were planning to do, because at that point the owner of the car opened his front door and he yelled, "Ils étaient en train de voler votre voiture!" They were stealing your car. Well, the men at that point took off running. The tall, thin one raced down this dead-end street and into an alley. The short and stout one waddled across the parking lot that I had just crossed, and I decided I think I'm going to follow him, because I'm not particularly fast at all. I'm slow, frankly. So I started chasing after him, and we had gotten no more than halfway across the parking lot when he quickly pivoted behind a car and he yelled, "Ne venez pas plus proche, j'ai un pistolet." Now, had I not learned to speak French, first of all, I couldn't have told the owner of the car what was going on, which caused the men to run. Secondly, I might have thought, as he yelled to me from behind the car, "Ne venez pas plus proche, j'ai un pistolet," that he was saying, "Why don't you come on over and watch TV with me? The Lille is playing on TV tonight." Lille is the local soccer team. And fortunately, I understood exactly what he said. What do you think he said? Yeah, most of you are probably right. He said, "Don't come any closer, I got a gun." Well, by the way, I was kind of touched by the fact that he used the formal in speaking with me, because after all, if he's going to shoot me, he may as well be respectful about it. But in any case, at that point, I had to make a decision. Is he bluffing, or does he really have a gun? Am I going to follow him or not? Well, I thought about my wife and children up in the apartment building on the 6th floor up there. I thought, this man still has his car. Insurance will repair it for him. I better not follow him. And so he took off running, and I just stayed there. And then suddenly, in a fit of, folly, I decided he must have been bluffing, and I started to chase him again. And in the first 2 steps, I fell flat. I tripped and fell flat on my face in the parking lot. I think probably for the best. In any case, that's a situation where, had I not known what he was saying to me, had I not been able to communicate rapidly to the owner of that car, who knows what might have happened. Emergency situations do arise when the ability to speak another language is indispensable. And did you notice when I yelled at the guy, I didn't say, let's see, third person plural, is a te, is an A-E-I-N-T, but they're silent. En train de is in the process of the whole infinitive form. No. I didn't break down the sentence and analyze it. I didn't think first in English and translate it. I said, "Ils étaient en train de voler voiture." I didn't say it very well that time. "Ils étaient en train de voler votre voiture." That wasn't very good either. I'm sure glad that it didn't happen today. "Ils étaient en train de voler votre voiture." No, it was an instantaneous reflex reaction. I didn't have to think about what I wanted to say. I immediately, from the concept to the target language, was able to express myself and to do it rather rapidly. And that's why you've got to develop linguistic reflexes as well. Maybe it won't be an emergency. Maybe it'll be some message you want to communicate nonetheless, which is very important for your hearer to hear. Maybe you need to receive influence or information from someone else who speaks that language which you're learning as well. But whatever the case, you need to take me seriously when I say that these reflexes have to be developed, and you've got to be able to respect the fastest pace on the timed activities within the ULAT program. Well, this lesson 1.8, assuming that you have mastered 1.7 and you were able to keep up with the time to activity with numbers, you can move on now to lesson 1.8. And in lesson 1.8, you're going to be learning about how to talk about, we're going to start to expand your vocabulary just a little bit, talk about different places where you might live, countries, but also whether you live in the city or in the country, whether you live in a house or in an apartment. So at this point, there's nothing more I need to say about that lesson. It's a fairly straightforward, simple lesson. Go ahead and perform lesson 1.8 on your own at this time.